the investigation into the mid-air mystery involving Northwest Flight 188. FAA officials sending letters to both pilots with a warning: you may have your licenses suspended. Joining me now from Washington, D.C. is Steve Wallace, the former director of the Office of Accident Investigation for the FAA. Steve is currently a senior aviation advisor with O'Neill & Associates, as well as being a commercial pilot. Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning.
Your gut reaction on this incident, what do you think happened? What's your take?
It's very difficult to explain. We've heard from so many experts over the last few days, and almost without exception, they say that sleeping seems the most likely explanation. The pilots have said that they weren't asleep. But in the domestic U.S. environment, to be out of touch with controllers for an hour and 18 minutes is inexplicable. Yeah,
absolutely. An hour and 18 minutes, and that's certainly not going to be the case as these NTSB and FAA investigators go in there and they say, all right, let's find out what happened. Take me through the line of questioning. Where does it go? Where does it start and where does it end up?
Well, I think it may start very open-ended. Tell us what happened, rather than trying to lead them with a certain theory. I mean, these pilots have a lot of explaining to do. The idea of being in a heated argument, which we heard, that really doesn't excuse anything. I mean, they're looking at a flight management system that tells them how many minutes are remaining to their destination. They have to start planning their descent. These are all things just pilots do normally. Most experts I've read over the last few days have agreed on one thing. This is very, very difficult to explain.
Okay, how about this, though? One explanation being offered up in terms of why they didn't connect after 13 tries by air traffic control towers to reach them, that and flight attendants, that they weren't tuned into the proper frequency. And you do have to tune into very specific channels. Is it possible that they were just off kilter by one little mark?
Well, that sort of thing happens, but pilots would normally catch it, because you start to get uncomfortable if you haven't heard from the air traffic controllers for a while, and you're listening to them talking to all the other airplanes that are in the area, or the ones that are going to your same destination.
Wait, Steve, you mean they could hear other conversations at this time, just because they may not have been able to communicate with them? They could hear what was going on or not? Was it relative silence?
No, normally, well, we don't know. We don't know if the radios, if the volume was turned all the way down or something like that. But normally, a pilot can hear all of the communications that the air traffic controller that they are talking to. They can hear the communications with the other aircraft in that sector as well.
Is there ever a reason to turn the volume all the way down? Whether you're in cruising mode, I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but whether you're at that level where you're just on autopilot, if you will, if you can hear what's happening with other planes, aren't you obliged to keep the volume up?
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. No, there's never a reason to turn it down, but once in a while, we call it, fumble fingers. Somebody pushes the wrong button or something like that. That could explain what you just suggested, that could they have been on the wrong frequency. I think that wasn't the case, because my understanding was they had another plane call them on that frequency sometime later in the flight when they finally did reestablish contact.
Here's the statement from the FAA, which I want to read to you, Steve. The FAA has sent letters of investigation to the two pilots involved in the recent Northwest Airlines overflight of Minneapolis. Depending on the outcome of our investigation, this action could lead to emergency suspension or revocation. Which means what? Can they get fired?
Yes, well, let me just start out by saying that the safety investigators are focused on finding out what happened with a view to making sure that it doesn't happen again. So that's the initial focus. The enforcement matters are down the road, and I would say that the career consequences come in two forms to these pilots. What action does the airline take against them, and what action does the FAA take against their pilot certificates? They could be suspended, which means their licenses are taken away for a finite period of time. They could be revoked, which means that they have to requalify for all of those licenses, and they normally cannot do that until at least 1 year has passed.
Okay, Steve Wallace, Senior Aviation Advisor with O'Neill & Associates. Steve, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And for more on the investigation into what happened in the cockpit of Northwest Flight 188, you can log on anytime and check it out on MSNBC.com.